Hi! Welcome to Grace and Recaps. Today, we will be recapping a 2005 movie entitled Kingdom of Heaven. Warning, spoilers ahead. Watch out and take care. During the winter of 1184 in France, a priest has a grave dug for the corpse of a woman that is said to have killed herself. That woman's husband is the town blacksmith named Balian, half-brother of the priest. As the priest examines the woman's body, he steals her necklace. Then crusaders walk past them going into the town. The corpse is beheaded and is given an improper burial because suicide is a grave offense to the Catholic faith. Balian, who is grieving over the sudden death of his wife and stillborn child, is released from prison by the command of the bishop-priest. Balian visits the grave of his wife, and the priest insults him, but he ignores and dismisses his remark. At home, he finally decides to let go of his family by burning their belongings and starts working once again as a blacksmith. The Crusaders, alongside Godfrey, the Baron of Ibelin, visits Balian. Then Godfrey introduces himself as his father and offers to bring him to Jerusalem with him. Balian refuses to leave, and his rejection prompts Godfrey to leave, but still, he hopes one day he will change his mind. The priest heard the conversation between Godfrey and Balian, and later that day, he persistently convinces Balian to leave their village in an attempt to claim Balian's property. The priest pushes too far as to reveal Balian's wife beheaded, a custom to the dead of suicide that prevents them from ascending into heaven, which angers Balian. Balian kills the priest by burning him and takes his wife's necklace from him. Balian catches up with Godfrey with the desire of finding forgiveness and redemption for him and his dead wife's sins at the Holy Land of Jerusalem. Godfrey takes Balian with him and teaches him swordsmanship. However, in the middle of the training, Godfrey's nephew interrupts them by warranting an arrest for Balian for the murder of the priest. Godfrey refuses to surrender Balian, and his nephew's men attack the Crusaders, which leads to Godfrey being mortally wounded. The Crusaders, along with Balian, continue their journey back to Jerusalem. As they reach the pilgrim camp on the road to Messina, Guy de Lusignan, the heir to the throne of Jerusalem as the husband of Princess Sabila, rudely greets and insults Godfrey and Balian while they are resting at the camp. When they arrive at Messina, which is the port to Jerusalem, the dying Godfrey grants knighthood to Balian as the knight and new Baron of Ibelin and instructs him to serve the king of Jerusalem and its people. After the brief ceremony, Godfrey succumbs to his injury and Balian is set to sail to Jerusalem. During his journey, a storm wrecks Balian's ship, which tragically left him and a horse as the only survivors in a desert land. Balian takes possession of the horse when suddenly two Saracen horsemen, also known as Muslims, a master and a servant, appear claiming that the horse belongs to the master because it is in his land and demands that Balian gives him the horse. Balian refuses to give the horse, which causes the master to fight Balian, eventually leading to the master's death. Balian, in dire need of help to reach Jerusalem, spares the life of the servant to help him reach his destination. Upon their arrival at Jerusalem, Balian kindly offers to give the servant the horse and the freedom from being a slave. The servant acknowledges Balian's kindness and reveals that the Saracen that Balian killed is a known knight among the Saracens and that he should be careful. As Balian treads his way in the busy streets of Jerusalem, the remaining men of Godfrey stalk him, seeing that he carries the sword of Godfrey. Balian immediately notices them, and the men question him, to which he replies with familiarities about Godfrey. Satisfied with Balian's answer, the men accept him as the new Baron of Ibelin. Godfrey's servants warmly welcome Balian as he resides in Jerusalem, and he wanders around the mansion admiring the glory of the place. Later that day, Princess Sabila visits the mansion looking for Balian. He does not introduce himself to her, but rather humbly gives her a drink, to which Sabila gives him a suspicious look and leaves. Balian is soon introduced to Tiberius, the Marshal of Jerusalem, who was a good friend of Godfrey, and they talk about Saladin, the infamous leader of the Saracens, with more than 200,000 men, and the conflict surrounding the Pledge of Peace, sworn by both the King of Jerusalem and Saladin. Balian also meets with the leper king Baldwin IV of Jerusalem, who was very fond of Godfrey as his teacher, and who also discovered that he had leprosy. The leper king invites Balian for chess and imparts him the wisdom that the man himself is his own soul's keeper, no matter who the man serves. The leper king then shows Balian the fortification of the city of Jerusalem and asks for Balian's suggestions to improve it, which Balian skillfully gives ways to strengthen the walls, impressing the leper king. As Balian steps on the very land of Balian, which he inherited from Godfrey, his first mission is to address the problem of drought in his land. Balian instructs his people to help him build a drainage system as an irrigation to crops and other resources in the land. Balian's dedication for his land earns him the respect from his people. Sabila visits him again and stays in Ibelin for a few days while her husband, Guy de Lusignan, travels to the east. With each passing day, Sabila grows fonder of Balian because of his nobility, and inevitably, they spend an intimate night together, becoming secret lovers. However, amidst the pleasant events in Ibelin, Guy conspires with Reynold of Chatillon and his Templars to massacre a Saracen caravan, which resulted in many civilians' death, breaking the king's pledge of peace. The news reaches Saladin, and they retaliate by attacking the Karak castle of Reynold to hold him accountable. Balian, by the orders of the leper king, is sent to protect the villagers of Karak. With his men outnumbered by Saladin's cavalry, they still bravely charge at them to give the villagers time to escape. As the battle intensifies, Balian and his men are defeated and captured by the enemy. Balian meets the servant again, whom he freed, and reveals himself as Saladin's chancellor, and repays Balian's kindness by sparing them. As the cavalry of Saladin and the leper king reach the battleground, the leper king negotiates with Saladin and promises that he himself will punish Reynold in exchange that the Muslims retreat to avoid further bloodshed, which Saladin accepts. Angrily, the leper king commands Reynold to kiss his deceased hand and beats him, which makes the leper king to collapse in exhaustion. Tiberius then arrests Reynold and sends him to prison. The event weakened the leper king, and he presumes his time is near. He calls for Balian to conclude his affairs and declares his wishes for his 6-year-old nephew to be crowned king, and that Balian be the new commander of the army of Jerusalem, which Balian accepts. The leper king also offers Sabila's hand, his sister, for marriage, knowing their affection, but primarily with the intent to protect the throne from Guy, as this will inevitably cause a war against the Saracens. Balian rejects the offer, as it will cause the execution of Guy, which his conscience cannot take. Sabila, in disbelief of Balian's rejection, ends their relationship, telling him that he will regret his decision, and that there will come a day when he will wish he had done a little evil to do the greater good, and she leaves him broken-hearted. Soon after, the leper king dies and the whole city of Jerusalem mourns. Sabila approaches the corpse of the leper king and takes off his mask, revealing his deformed face, which shocks her. Guy, since the death of the leper king, keeps pressuring Sabila to keep him at her side if she wants her son to be safe, making him heir to the throne. After the coronation of Sabila's son, she finds out that he is also infected with leprosy. Sabila's son is unresponsive to the reaction of pain. This fills Sabila with grief, and she poisons her son to save him from her brother's fate, driving her mad. Guy releases Reynold, and they conspire to kill Balian by sending assassins. Balian defeats the assassins but collapses after the battle. Guy then unleashes Reynold to wage war against Saladin by killing Saracens and Saladin's sister. This heinous act enrages Saladin and breaks the pledge of peace. As expected, Saladin sends an emissary and demands the body of his sister, the heads of the men responsible for her death and the surrender of Jerusalem, to which Guy arrogantly replies by decapitating the emissary's head, making the start of a war. As the cavalry of Jerusalem are assembling for battle, Balian appears before the war council to stop them from leaving the city. Guy refuses to listen to Balian and pushes through for war. Tiberius sides with Balian and removes his knights from the assembly, making Guy even more eager to go to war to claim all the glory. Tiberius's men and Balian are left behind to protect the city. As Guy's cavalry march towards Saladin's encampment, his men become dehydrated and die off as the scorching heat of the desert defeated them. Saladin uses this advantage and mercilessly kills all of Guy's men, decapitating all of their heads, including the infamous Reynold, but sparing Guy only because he was unworthy to be killed by a king. Tiberius sees Guy's fallen army and decides to flee to Cyprus. However, Balian remains and is determined to protect the people of Jerusalem. Balian devises a plan to defend the city long enough for the Saracens to discuss terms. Outnumbered and without knights, Balian knights the men-at-arms and those capable of fighting to make them better fighters. The war begins with Saladin hurling fireballs to the walls of the city, causing damages, but intentionally does not fight back to reserve their counterattack for the next day. As 3 days pass, the assaults against Saladin's cavalry become more and more evident on the side of Balian's favor. Executing each strategic plan each day gives them the upper hand, killing more Saracens than Christians. With Saladin on the losing side, he finally comes to terms as he recognizes Balian's firm resolve. He offers to safely escort the people of Jerusalem to other Christian lands, but Balian will have to surrender Jerusalem to him. Balian accepts the offer, and as the two retreat to their sides, Balian asks, "What is Jerusalem worth?" To which Saladin replies as both nothing, as a city itself, and everything to the people bound by faith and devotion to God. Balian returns to the city to declare to his people the surrender of Jerusalem, with the assurance that the people are to be safely transported to other Christian lands. The people celebrate. Inside the city, Balian looks for Sabila and tells her that despite the surrender of Jerusalem to Saladin, the kingdom of her brother remains in the minds and hearts of the people, and that if Sabila renounces her position as queen, Balian will come for her. As everyone prepares to leave the city, a humiliated Guy confronts Balian one last time for a duel. Balian accepts and ultimately defeats Guy and spares him, leaving him these words, "When you rise again, if you rise a knight." Saladin goes into the city of Jerusalem, admiring the glory and holiness of the place as his people settle in their new home. Saladin sees a cross on the floor, which he carefully picks up and places it on the table with respect to the Christian faith. As Balian leaves the city, he sees Sabila and they walk hand in hand. The movie ends as new crusaders ask a blacksmith where they can find Balian. This movie teaches us that selflessness and honor pave the way for greatness, both as individuals and as a community. And that's the end of this recap. If you like our content, please make sure to like and subscribe. And if you have more movies that you'd like us to recap, please leave it in the comments. Thank you for watching!